Jack. I want to do a list of the best bosses in the Kingdom Hearts series, but I haven't played 358 Days. You mind helping me out?
Sure, why not? Sounds like fun.
Great. You're not gonna act like you hacked my video, are you?
No, because what happens in 2012 stays in 2012.
Alright then, let's do this!
Now we just need an intro to get this thing going. Something that will be fitting for both you and me. What to do? Wait! I got an idea!
I think I speak for many when I say Kingdom Hearts is one of the greatest RPG series out there. It has everything really, except a cohesive story, and one of its most defining features is its combat.
Said combat differs from game to game, but it always manages to be really enjoyable, and this makes for some truly fantastic boss fights. They are action-packed, test your skills, and occasionally tug on your heartstrings. So we're here to talk about the 10 that we love the most.
To keep things fair, we're including at least one boss from each main series game, except for Recoded because, let's be real, nobody cares about that game.
Also, keep in mind, we're going to be spoiling these games quite heavily here. With all that banter done, let's roll!
You know how we said that the Kingdom Hearts series has some fantastic boss fights? Well, Kingdom Hearts 3D really didn't get the memo. Most of the bosses in this game are just not very good. They typically fall into one of three camps. They're either really cheap like Hokomoki and Wargoyle that have insane range with hard to dodge attacks, really dull like Chillclopster and Chernobog that just go against what bosses in this series should be, or really annoying like holy moly, this thing is a nightmare, both figuratively and literally.
However, there are gems in this boss roster, and this is where Rinzler steps in.
Back in Kingdom Hearts 2, Sora traveled to the Space Paranoids, a world based off Tron, and met up with, well, Tron. Sora was able to easily befriend Tron because he's Sora, and it was hopeful he'd see Tron again in the future. So when Sora landed in the Grid, another world based off Tron, he immediately knew where he was.
However, when Sora met up with Tron, he couldn't even recognize him. Sora then learns that Clue had corrupted Tron, turning him into Rinzler, and Sora's not down with that and wanted to get his friend back. Unfortunately, when they managed to get to Tron's source code, it ended up being a trap set by Xehanort, and Sora ended up in the battle arena.
Clue tried to make a deal with Sora, offering to return Rinzler to Tron if he handed over the Keyblade. But Sora refused, and Clue decides to use Force, sicking Rinzler on Sora. Sora didn't want to fight his friend, but Korra showed up and said it was Rinzler that saved her from the trap, showing he might still be in there, so Sora decides to fight him to bring him back.
During the fight, Rinzler will throw his two discs like boomerangs and try to rush you with them up close. Your best bet is to try to keep as much distance from him as possible, if you can help it. There will also be times where the gravity in the arena will flip, forcing you onto the ceiling. While this makes the control a little awkward, Rinzler typically only attacks at close range at this point, so you don't have to worry about getting blindsided.
The fight itself is the right level of challenge, unlike most of the other bosses in the game. He's not a boss that will constantly attack with unpredictable moves, rather he fights like a human would. Rather fitting in a way. Another really cool detail about this fight is that some of Rinzler's attacks are taken straight from Tron Legacy. Nice attention to detail there, Square.
But there's a big part to this fight that makes it stand out. The emotion. As we said, Rinzler is a corrupted Tron and Sora wants to save him. He's doing this to save a friend, not save this world. This point is really driven home when the fight ends and Sora reconfigures his data.
When the fight ends and Clue sees that his plan has failed, he tries to dispose of Sora, but Rinzler pushes him out of the way. He even tries to grab Sora's hand as he falls. That shows that Tron was saved.
Man, that's a great emotional moment. The series could use a lot more with that, and less of...
Goofy!
that. Friggin' cop-outs. After Ventus left the land of departure, the master of all three of Birth by Sleep's protagonists, named Ericus, sends Aqua out on her journey to bring him back. And as the game goes on, you find out that it's not because he's concerned about Ven's safety.
Ericus knew the sad truth that Ventus's heart was a necessary component to forge the true Keyblade, so when Ventus returned home and questioned Ericus about the Keyblade, he decided to eliminate the problem outright. Fortunately, Terra showed up to save his buddy and decides to take down his master to do so.
This leads to a one-on-one fight between master and student. Terra begins the battle with the Dark Impulse command style to foreshadow the fact that the darkness within him is growing. Meanwhile, Ericus mainly focuses on light-based attacks. He'll slash at Terra quickly, launch balls of light, and cloak his body in light to unleash some devastating attacks. He can also warp behind Terra if he blocks an attack or fails to block one to blindside him. It certainly feels like a clash of equals and at the same time, a battle of opposites.
Also, similar to Rinzler, there's a great deal of emotion in this fight. Terra is fighting his hardest and risking losing himself to the darkness to save his friend, and Ericus wants to stop Terra and Ventus to save all worlds. Ultimately, Terra is forced to strike down his master, and Xehanort shows up to consume the land of departure with darkness and tells Terra to go to the Keyblade Graveyard. This moment alone sets up the climax of the game so well because everyone has a reason for wanting to take down Xehanort.
Wow, we talked about 2 emotional boss fights in a row. Are we gonna stop anytime soon?
Not even close, just you wait.
Kingdom Hearts 358 over 2 days. While I personally don't hate the game, I certainly will agree with everyone that it has a lot of issues. One of them being most of the bosses, which range from bleh, to step in a pile of mud with socks on, to you're making cyanide pills look tasty, to please go perform toenail surgery on yourself with a plastic spoon! Yeah, they're not that good.
However, like with Dream Drop Distance, there are always exceptions to the rule, or so I've heard. I haven't actually played the game myself, so take it away, Jack!
Thanks. Then let's talk about Xian. Throughout the game, Xian grew really close to Roxas and eventually Axel, and even went through a character development cycle similar to that of Roxas, being that she starts off saying almost no words, but expresses a full array of emotions in the later parts of the story. However, she learned she was eventually going to be used as a weapon for the organization, so she tried to run away and make her own existence, but Axel managed to catch her every time. Ultimately, the organization reprogrammed her and used her for the exact purpose she was meant to have. And her first task was to eliminate Roxas because they know how to handle traitors. The fight is broken up into 4 phases, and it's basically a culmination of everything you've learned up to this point. The first phase focuses on testing your aerial observation, with Xian using several close-ranged aerial attacks and spending most of her time in the air. Thankfully, the game gives you plenty of options to snuff her out and damage her, so her air time is not a problem. The second phase has her using more projectile attacks, so you'll need to close in on her quickly, though she does have some close-range combat and a move that vacuums you in, giving you less room to dodge. This part can get annoying, especially if she uses Ragnarok one too many times in a row. In the third phase, you need to focus on speed to succeed, since her attacks have much more range than before and can combo you easily. And finally, in the fourth phase, you have to get in as close as you can, avoid even more brutal attacks she throws at you, and ultimately put her down for good.
Of course, this all leads to one of the cheesiest lines ever put into a video game.
Who else will I have ice cream with?
While I understand what they were trying to do with that line, the execution could have been much better. But back to the battle. It's pretty long for sure, but it's such an emotional ride all the way through since Roxas has to kill one of his best friends. To see Roxas and Xian become such good friends throughout the game and see the organization cause them to fight each other is absolutely tragic. To make matters worse, after Xian dies, memories of her fade away to the point where people like Roxas and Riku even forget who she is, and that's honestly pretty sad. I'm just hoping her dying wish will come true in Kingdom Hearts 3.
You know, when it comes out, eventually. When it comes to bosses in the first Kingdom Hearts game, it's kind of all over the place. Some decent ones, some mildly annoying ones, and some that just make you want to pull your hair out. However, this game does have some bosses that stick out for the right reasons, such as Leon and Cloud, Hades, and our number 7. These bosses manage to put up a fight that's properly challenging, yet fair at the same time.
On that note, let's talk about what's widely considered to be the best boss in the first game, Riku. Except I wouldn't know since I haven't played the first game, so this one's all you, Aero.
Throughout the entire game, Sora was searching through all the different worlds in hopes of finding his best friends, Riku and Kairi. Riku had sided with Maleficent after she convinced him that he had been replaced, and because she promised she'd reunite Riku with Kairi. Fast forward to Hollow Bastion, aka the best world in the series, and Riku has been possessed by Ansem and is bent on releasing Kairi's heart from Sora's body to complete the final keyhole. However, Sora just won't have that and fights the possessed Riku one-on-one. At first glance, this seems like a pretty typical rival battle, and for the most part it is, except that Riku has some incredible dark powers and insane speed. He'll move all over the battlefield, attempting to rush Sora at first. However, periodically during the fight, he'll increase his power to be able to shoot dark energy discs and slam on the ground to release waves of dark fire. Then when most of his health is depleted, he basically says screw you and keeps his power boost. He'll also unleash his most devastating attack, Dark Aura, which is incredibly easy to dodge simply by gliding. After enough hits, he goes down.
In all seriousness, this fight is pretty simple compared to other bosses in the series. However, what makes it stand out is how much of a fight it is. No offensive magic works on him at all, so you have to rely solely on your Keyblade combos to succeed. But that simplicity works in the fight's favor, as every time you fail, it feels like your own fault instead of the game being cheap.
I also love what happens after the battle, where Riku uses what little strength he has to allow Kairi to escape. Altogether, this is a fight with a great amount of build-up and challenge and shows off the very best of the combat system in the first Kingdom Hearts game.
In Birth by Sleep, Terra struggles to keep the darkness within him contained. After laying it loose and defeating his master, Xehanort shows up to offer to take Terra under his wing.
But his true intentions were to possess Terra to ditch his aging body. Ultimately, he does succeed and gives Terra a final boss fight that's... how do I put this?
Awesome!
Well, let's just say it wasn't as good as the other final bosses, but we're not here to talk about that. In the secret episode, Aqua meets up with him and fights him to get her friend back. Now this is a fight to remember. Don't get me wrong, Terra's fight with Xehanort wasn't bad, but this fight was clearly designed for someone like Aqua.
Not too much changes in this fight from when you fought Terranort as Terra. He'll utilize dark-based attacks, but also use some of Terra's techniques, and if you're not careful, he'll truck you in no time. He can also heal himself periodically, so don't ever let up. However, this is only the first phase of the fight.
In the second phase, he unleashes his Guardian and becomes a lot more aggressive. He'll use attacks such as aerial strikes and dark shockwaves. It's actually not that different from the Ansem fight in the first game, and that was pretty good too.
After Aqua defeats Terranort, she decides to seal herself in the realm of darkness to keep Terra in the normal realm in hopes that he'd be free. Because the ending is so bleak, it really hammers the point that it was a hopeless battle, making the outcome's emotional value that much more effective.
Altogether, it's a fantastic final boss fight and a good way to wrap up the game. Certainly better than the boss in the special episode. Now that we're done talking about Xehanort, let's talk about Xehanort. Not that Xehanort. Nope, not that one either. Ah, this is confusing! All you Xehanorts look alike! Oh, that's the one we're looking for. Anyways, throughout Dream Drop Distance, Xehanort is watching your every move, stringing Sora and Riku along the path he wants them to follow. And if you see my favorite bosses countdown, you know exactly where this is going.
Seriously, the amount of build-up and tension this one fight has is incredible. You've seen young Xehanort throughout the entire game and been itching to take him down, and this is your chance. But it's not like he doesn't know how to fight. Quite the opposite, actually.
Xehanort himself is a Keyblade master, and he puts all those skills to use here. He'll attack with Keyblade combos, an Energy Whip, Ice Crystals, shots that inflict slow, Energy Shockwaves, and ricocheting lasers. He's constantly keeping on the pressure, but you have to do the same. If you can get him to stagger, that's your opportunity to wail on him.
But even if you drain his HP to 0, he's not done yet. He'll stop time and create a clock in the middle of the battlefield, which you have to do a reality shift immediately, and then drain that HP bar down to 0 in order to beat him. Failure to do either of these will cause young Xehanort to actually rewind the fight and get a bit of his health back.
However, that clock is hardly a sitting duck. It'll send clones of Xehanort to attack with rushes, flaming crosses, and fire pillars. But when you do take down the clock, it's such a satisfying feeling. Actually, satisfying is a great way to describe this fight. You've waited the whole game to take him down, and he puts up one of the greatest fights in the series to show you he means business. Also, we can't forget to mention the absolutely amazing music piece that accompanies this fight. It's so good!
Aero? Control yourself. I don't want my collaborator to have a fangasm.
But it's so good!
That's it! Don't forget, I'm the one editing.
Killjoy.
In Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories, Sora's progress is constantly being tracked by number 11 of the organization and R rank 4, Marluxia.
Known as the Graceful Assassin, he goes to Castle Oblivion along with Clark Seed and plans to use Naminé's power to make Sora their puppet to overthrow the organization. Unlike other members of the organization who seek the creation of Kingdom Hearts, Marluxia has his own agenda and his plan is brilliant. He then orders Naminé to erase Sora's memory completely, which would utterly destroy Sora's heart. But thanks to some unexpected help from the Riku replica, that plan fails and Marluxia decides to take down Sora himself, beginning the final fight of Chain of Memories.
In the first phase, Marluxia will go around the battlefield using various attacks with his scythe. His normal attacks are fairly easy to deal with, but his slates are another story.
His slates let him unleash powerful attacks that can be pretty difficult to avoid. Like any slate, these can be broken, otherwise you need to have mastered dodging in order to avoid taking a beating.
However, once his health hits 0, it's revealed that Sora was only fighting a copy, so he heads out to fight the real Marluxia, who's merged with a giant nobody. In the second phase, he has a large number of attacks including ramming, releasing petals that shoot lasers, jumping to create shockwaves, and firing cross-shaped lasers.
The main objective is to destroy the scythes and then the main body. Fortunately, Marluxia in this phase mostly sticks to a pattern with his attacks, so if you plan well, you can anticipate an impending attack and retaliate with a counter. And then when this form is defeated, it's still not over.
We kind of had to stay silent just to let the drastic change in the atmosphere and music soak in. Now seemingly fighting in another dimension, this is the final phase of the fight, and it sure as heck is a doozy. A few basic attacks from previous phases return, but the slates are the real thing you need to be wary of. He's the only boss in the game to use slates without a deck, and this changes the dynamic of this phase completely.
His slates are very powerful and have a variety of effects, such as blowing Sora away, unleashing lasers, and scattering Sora's deck. But then there's his most powerful attack, Doom.
If Sora is hit by this attack, a card duel will begin and you have to break through Marluxia's set of cards before the counter hits 0. Failure to do so will result in an instant game over. This is definitely the part of the fight that can be the most nerve-wracking, since not only can Marluxia destroy your deck, but also kill you if you're not quick on the draw. But once this form is defeated, Marluxia is finally defeated, and fades into nothingness.
This final battle tests your mastery of the card-based combat of Chain of Memories and puts all of your skills to the test. I'd also like to point out that each of the music pieces for the 3 phases reflects something about Marluxia. The first one, Graceful Assassin, is his title. The second, Scythe of Petals, reflects his weapon. And the third, Lord of the Castle, reflects his disposition.
Square certainly knows how to enhance a fight with little touches, don't they?
Throughout Ventus' story in Birth by Sleep, he had a rival in Vanitas. Vanitas is essentially Ventus' dark side, created from the darkness in Ventus' heart that Zayn extracted. He appears many times throughout the story and uses the Unverse in hope of making Ventus' heart strong enough to forge the Keyblade.
This leads to the finale of Ventus' story. At the Keyblade graveyard, Vanitas nearly kills Aqua, but through sheer force of willpower, Ventus breaks out of his frozen state and decides to defeat Vanitas once and for all, beginning the final battle of the story.
Vanitas' attacks are very similar to Ventus'. He'll attack with Keyblade combos and magic attacks such as Blizzard and Dark Thundaga. He's also really fast, often dodging direct attacks and teleporting only to appear right behind Ventus. He can also ride a literal storm of Keyblades and rush at Ven. This phase isn't too difficult to deal with as long as you keep the pressure on and heal when needed.
But when this form falls, Vanitas shows his true colors, reveals the whole truth behind the link between them, and takes the battle literally into Ventus' heart. As of this battle, the Keyblade is incomplete, and Ventus' heart is needed to complete it, and Vanitas will do anything to make that a reality. On the surface, not much changes in this phase, except that his attacks are much faster and trickier to avoid, and he adds in a few new ones to spice things up.
However, when his HP is reduced to 1, the battle changes completely. He'll force a dimension link with Ventus, and you have to deplete his new health bar. Your only commands at this point are Dark Spiral, a rushing attack, Dark Slicer where you teleport around Vanitas attacking multiple times, and the Shock Block command Dark Link. The key is to react accordingly to Vanitas' attacks and counterattacking with your own in order to deplete his HP before he finishes you off.
Out of all the final battles in Birth by Sleep, this one definitely stands out the most to us. It's challenging, it has the perfect atmosphere, the music is amazing, and it's an all-around fantastic way to end Ventus' story. Of course, this comes at the cost of Ventus' heart, but I've got a feeling we'll see him again sometime.
Wow, we've gotten this far and we haven't seen a single Kingdom Hearts 2 boss on here. How about that?
Well, you know what they say about saving the best for last. Speaking of which...
Yeah, it's not much of a surprise that Xemnas made it onto our list, let alone this high. But do we care? No, because this fight is absolutely amazing!
Sora is the only thing standing in between Xemnas and his goal of creating Kingdom Hearts, so he decides to remove Sora from the equation. This starts the first phase where Xemnas fights Sora one-on-one, blade to blade, no holds barred. Yeah, this phase is relatively simple and can be ended quickly if you're so bold during the reaction command, but this phase excels in its atmosphere.
Between the constant downpour, the distorted background, and the incredibly dark music, it's clear that Xemnas wants you dead. But once Sora takes him down there, he retreats behind a door because reasons, and Sora and company chase him down. This results in some really cool cinematics, including slicing skyscrapers into pieces, and some sick acrobatics as Sora jumps towards Xemnas' pet dragon. Is this anime or what?
Following that is a section where you have to take out its engines and try to avoid getting well done. After that, you drop into the Nobody's Court and have to take it out, all while dealing with Xemnas' personal Nobody army. And once that's all said and done, you fight Armored Xemnas, and he's so confident he doesn't even move from his throne.
What's interesting about this part is that Xemnas attacks with various attacks from other organization members. Kinda makes you wonder if there's a heart in there after all. Regardless, he goes down and all's well. Nope, couldn't even say that with a straight face. It's not over yet. Xemnas' Dragon Nobody takes off somehow after having its engines and core totaled, and Sora and Riku pursue him on some Nobody ship. Convenient.
What follows is a sort of pseudo-gummy section where you have to fly around, shoot down enemy Nobodies, and absorb shots to gain enough energy to shoot up. After dealing enough damage, you finally zero in on the blue-eyes Chrome Dragon and land on its head to confront Xemnas.
This phase of the fight is very similar to a phase beforehand, with Xemnas using attacks from deceased organization members as well as his own, but it'll occasionally send Sora and Riku flying, and you have to guide Sora back and use a conveniently placed skyscraper to break the dragon's defense to get back to finishing off Xemnas.
And then it's still not over! Bringing you into another dimension, Xemnas puts everything he has into his last stand. And when I say everything, I mean it. He'll attack with massive energy spheres, vine-like strikes, teleporting everywhere to shoot lasers and occasionally grabbing Sora to initiate an aerial slash-off.
There's even a part where you get to control Riku and you have to save Sora from Xemnas' clutches before he's finished, and all this leads up to, yeah, a pretty epic final attack that just shows what lengths Xemnas is willing to go to end our heroes.
Square Enix went all out with this final battle. The atmosphere and music are phenomenal, the action is non-stop, each part feels different, and the feeling of satisfaction at the end is unlike anything else. Seriously, this is one of the most beloved boss fights in the series and considered one of the greatest final boss fights ever for good reason. Which begs the question, what in the world can top this? We've seen boss fights on this list run the gamut from great to fantastic to outstanding. But to top this list, we need something different. A boss fight that does more than just provide a good fight with some nice touches or emotion. We need a boss fight that goes that extra mile to show the player how a character is feeling.
And there's only one boss fight in the series that fits that description. And his name is Roxas. This boss right here is pretty much the textbook example of how to handle an emotional boss fight in a video game. Roxas is Sora's nobody, inadvertently created when Sora became a Heartless in the first game. He wants to be his own person and feels that he can't because Sora exists.
The premise alone is enough to set the stage and the emotion, but there's so much more than that to this fight. This feels like a true clash of equals, in a similar vein to Ansem Riku. Roxas has several attacks, including slash shockwaves, rush combos, and a Keyblade wheel strike. However, once he's lost a certain amount of health, he'll float in the center of the battlefield shooting orbs of light, and after that he becomes a lot more aggressive.
Whenever he attacks at this point, he'll have lasers accompanying his attacks, making blocking and countering a bit trickier. You may also get the chance to take Roxas' Keyblades if you're quick on the draw with the reaction command, but don't think this makes Roxas helpless, because he'll attack by shooting lasers all over the place.
The fight itself is fantastically made and has the perfect challenge, but what really sells it is the emotion. Roxas is fighting so he can finally be someone. You can kinda sympathize with him. And during the entire fight, he never shows his face, as if he's ashamed that his face looks like Sora's. And finally, there's the music. It doesn't sound triumphant. It doesn't sound energetic. It sounds sorrowful. It's as if Roxas himself is speaking his emotions through the music.
The only problem we have with this fight is that it's really short. Other than that, this fight has it all. It's challenging, atmospheric, emotional, and without a doubt, our favorite boss fight in the Kingdom Hearts series. I'm the Lightning Ripper.
And I'm Aero Dragon.
And I suddenly feel like crying right now.
I do not blame you in the slightest.